we grow plants in sterile conditions like we do for seed, because seed is a high value crop, therefore, or seedlings, we have to put all these extra chemicals on them to keep them sterile and all of that kind of discussion. Undoubtedly, that is also an Achilles heel, in that that plant, as it goes through that growth process, it's not being challenged by any diseases, and much of the biome, much of the genetic expression within a plant, which of course, yes, gets carried through into the seed. Much of that genetic expression happens during the growing season. And if we have a bit of exposure to stress, to pathogens, to environmental stresses, cold temperatures, maybe slightly warmer temperatures, all of the environmental triggers turn on all sorts of wonderful gene expression that then gets carried through into the seed for the next generation. And we have the studies that support this, absolutely, that a mother plant that is challenged by a pathogen, and it overcomes that pathogen attack through that immune system response that plants have, as it responds to that, it primes all of the genes that it needs to defeat that pathogen, and all of those genes get carried through into the seed in a more upregulated state. And therefore, the following generation has immunity by default. And we're talking about epigenetics basically here. And I really absolutely agree that, yes, seedlings that have been grown in poor conditions, or seed that you buy in, that's been grown on another farm in another part of the country, maybe another part of the world, in very different soil types, in very different microbiome conditions. That seed, from the mother plant that it came, it's all primed to all of those signals. It's upregulated and ready to go next year for all of those signals that it received, that the mother plant received during that growing season. And then you put that seed into a completely different context, completely different signals, different soil type, different nutrient availability, different pathogens or microbials present. It is not ready for that. It's just very obvious. And that's where the challenge that I think probably Russell's speaking of, that seed dealers insist that you have to spray this and apply this and manage it in a very specific orchestrated way there, is actually undermining the very nature of what we're trying to achieve. And the answer to this discussion is seed saving. If you grow those plants in your own soils, in your own environment, with those own external cues, the genetics get switched on appropriately to all of those cues, so that the next generation is primed and ready. And this is the very simple answer, is the importance of seed saving. And I think that in this whole discussion about regenerative agriculture and transitioning towards less input dependent systems, key to this is absolutely the discussion around seed, genetics, seed, the right varieties for those low input systems, but also growing those genetics in the very same systems in which you then are going to propagate them out to then grow in. There's no point growing it in a high input system to put that seed in a low input system. It's just not likely to do. It might do all right, but it's not likely to do the best. So the answer to this is absolutely seed saving. And if you can all become masters of seed saving in your own soil types, in your own localities, in your own local context, then that is absolutely the key.
And thinking to your situation, Russell, I'm just wondering, as a seed seller, does that give indication as to who his best market would be? Like, to think about, that there's going to be certain people, certain farmers that grow a certain way that are going to benefit from a lower input grown seed, and that then changes the value of that seed. Jump in, Russell.
Okay, just so quickly, that's my frustration, I guess. Unfortunately for us, about 99.9% of our customers are the old school chemicals, nuke it with everything you can. So it makes it very difficult for us as producers to, start to move in that other direction fully, because people aren't on board with you. And I mean, a typical case is our wheat seed. This current crop that we've just sort of finished with, I think we sold 760 or 70 tonne of seed. There was 100 tonne of that went out untreated, so unpickled. But of that, I think 94 tonne of that 100 tonne that went out was going to be treated by those farmers themselves anyway. So you've basically got 6 tonne to one person who wasn't going to treat that seed, was happy to just buy it as it was from us and let it go. So I guess we're caught in a hard situation that how do we move forward in our own production system, not wanting to put all those things on our seed, but mindful of the fact that 99% of our market is still that way. So the scenario for me is if I don't plant pickled wheat seed this year and I harvest that crop, effectively, in theory, I would need to treat every tonne of that with a pickle of some sort, if you listen to the agronomy side and the old school side of the world, to sell that seed. Whereas if I grow some of it pickled, they say that you can get away with not pickling it that next year. So every second year, put a pickle on it. That's the theory behind what you should be doing. So by doing some pickling, I save myself the job to some customers of having to put pickle on. But, there's others that just want stuff pickled every year. So it's a dilemma. I don't know. I'm fully aware of what Joel's saying, and I think it's great. But unfortunately, we have to get the markets to move enough that it's then worth our while to step in and 100% change the way we do things, I guess.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think that you're tapping into a discussion here about the business model and transitioning of the business model. And I would just a small suggestion. I would say I would think about the way I think a lot about transitioning farmers and input systems or any of this. It's not about jumping into the deep end and going cold turkey. It's about that incremental change and those small steps towards where you want to be. And I would suggest something like, of course, if 99% of your market is what it is, then carry on growing to what your market wants. But my feeling is there's a growing opportunity that there may be a portion of your farm, a portion of your land, which you could start to grow seed, like we've discussed, do things like, as I'm sure you're aware, compost extract, seed treatments with microbials and biostimulants to kind of support some of these processes that I'm talking about. Maybe there's an opportunity there for you to consider something like some direct marketing, produce some seed. There is a growing number of regenerative farmers who are looking for untreated seed, who are looking for seed that may be treated with a diverse compost extract. Maybe at the time it was planted, maybe as a seed wash prior to harvest to kind of coat some of that biology prior to the combine. Take one small field and explore something like a bit of direct marketing and selling that kind of biologically focused seed of course, at a higher value, at a higher price. And take a small kind of slice of that market and slowly kind of grow that. But sure, if the mainstay it is, fine. But I'm sure there'd be maybe some opportunities to kind of do some higher value and probably, based on the fact that you're on this call, something that's a bit more rewarding for your own career, for your own day-to-day life, doing something that feels more positive and engages that side of your passion. So maybe take a small step into some direct marketing. Don't go through the usual retailers. Do it this way, market it directly yourself and find some customers to explore that avenue and expand from there.
Can I just throw something in there? So your suggestion of putting liquids down and putting some pelletized products and that in the slot with the seeds, we're doing that sort of stuff already. So in our own operation, we're trying to obviously improve our situation as quickly as we can. I guess it's more on the marketing side is where there's some obvious hurdles, but I'm certainly happy to go with that sort of stuff if it presents the opportunity. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm sure.